Welcome to the Amazon Legends podcast, where we have real stories about making it big on Amazon. Our guests are CEOs of large companies and entrepreneurs who became powerful sellers, also experts specializing in helping sellers, and both former and current Amazon employees who will give us an insight from behind the scenes. Here's your host, Nick Urison.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Amazon Legends. Today, my guest is actually a partner and co-founder of Partner Trend Nation, which is an Amazon product company. And he's president and CEO of Channel Key, which is an Amazon agency. He's a member of the Forbes Council, a proud dad of twins, and a fellow scuba diver. So everybody meet my guest, Dan Brownsher. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Oh, great to have you. So last time we talked, you told me about a formula you created for something every company needs in the post-COVID world. So tell us what that formula is.
It's around building a company culture in a remote environment.
Wow. So this is so key. So everybody's like, at this point, we start another episode, everybody's thinking, okay, we're going to hear all about Amazon, something secret, something. And then you hit me with this remote company culture. What is that about? I mean, I can understand post-COVID companies are going remote, but tell me, how do you do that and why you have to do it?
Yeah. So to your point, Nick, we post-COVID, we went fully remote. We were considering doing it prior to COVID, and then COVID kind of forced our hand, and we haven't looked back. And what's interesting about it is, as I was thinking about kind of what we do and how we do it and why we do it, it dawned on me that this is not necessarily even about being in a remote environment. Like, this is what all companies should do, but I think it takes a little bit more intention when you've got this remote environment, because you can't see your people, you can't talk to them every day, you can't run into them randomly throughout your day. So as I was trying to think about this, what we do and why I believe it's working is really three things. We're very intentional around creating connections. Okay. And so an example of that is every meeting we do is on Teams, right? Zoom, Teams, right? Pick your platform. One of our requirements as a company for all meetings, internal meetings and external meetings, is that you have your camera on. Okay. Because we want to see the nonverbal cues and nonverbal communication, right? Like, I believe that's how that's a fundamental way that people communicate together. And it's important to understand how people are doing, right? If you can see their face, if you can see what's happening in their background, it gives you a better sense of where they're at, as opposed to just hearing their voice.
So I'm going to share something with you. This is one of my favorite things. And in fact, you are so right. And I developed a rule around this. So there is something called 7% rule. Have you heard about it?
No, I haven't.
Okay, you're gonna love this one.
Okay.
And I'm sure you're gonna put this in your culture playbook.
Okay.
7% rule was developed by a psychologist, I believe, Dr. Mehrabian. You can look this up.
I'm gonna write that down.
He says that in communication between people, only 7% of the message is carried through the words. 38% is carried in the tone of your voice.
Yeah.
55% is in the body language.
There you go, Nick.
Those three numbers: 7% words, 38% tone of your voice, 55% body language. So if you are resolving a conflict via email, good luck, right?
Doesn't work.
So I have a rule myself in my company is we do not have difficult conversations via text. We do not have difficult conversations via email exchanges. We do not have it on the phone. We do not have it in audio. We have it on camera.
Nick. You're speaking my language, man. I mean, I've got actual data to back this up.
Absolutely.
I think I knew it, but now I can cite it, which is important.
Now you have science behind it.
That's right. That's right.
So what's the second thing?
So we're very much, and this is part of our culture, it's all about transparency for us. We're very transparent as a company with everything that's happening, with our numbers, okay, with our wins, with our losses, and we share all this with our team. Okay, so it's, again, we're not in the office. You can't see my body language as I'm walking around all day. Like you can't pick up on these cues as easily in this remote environment. So we've taken our transparency to the next level with regards to sharing data with our team, right? We share our revenue, we share our profit, we share how we're performing to goals, we show the numbers, and we talk about it. Every single quarter in our all hands meeting, we show the numbers.
So this is not a controversial territory, of course. You know that already. Open book accounting. And everybody wants to know everybody else's salary. So there are actually methodologies around how to do open book, how to be open book without really being open book, where nobody can say that, oh, you're just hiding it. But in fact, you still disclose. So share with us some practical tips about how to be open book.
Let's see. So every single quarter, we do an all hands meeting. Okay. And we do it remotely. It's usually a 2.5 hour, 3 hour meeting. And we retrospect, we review the results of the prior quarter, and we look at our goals for the upcoming quarter. Okay.
And what are those results specifically? Is it revenue, profit?
Yes. And yes. Furthermore, we operate off a platform called EOS for our business. There's a book called Traction or a book called Get a Grip. And it's an operating system for entrepreneurs to run their business. And so one of the elements there is we set what are called rocks every single quarter. And rocks are goals or objectives that we want to achieve during that particular quarter. These aren't tasks. These are initiatives. And so we report on our productivity around our rocks. We show the rocks. These are the things that the leadership or the company is going to complete. And we show whether or not we completed those rocks. Okay. So there's that. And these are initiatives that are moving the company forward. Okay. And so if I back up a bit, we've got rocks for the year. We've got a 3-year plan. And I personally share the 3-year plan with every single employee within the first 1 to 2 weeks that they started our organization. Okay. So the rocks feed into the quarterly plan, to the annual plan, to the 3-year plan. Okay. So we're transparent around our productivity around achieving those goals. We show revenue, we show profit to goal. We talk about our budget. If we create a second operating plan or a reforecast for the balance of the year, we share those numbers and we're reporting how we're doing against plan. And we have a huddle board, our KPIs that we track weekly as well, that show how we're performing to some very select KPIs that we think are important, that dictate the pulse of the business. So those are a few things that we do. And
this is, when you mention EOS, that stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System, right? So that's why you're referring to.
That's right.
I'm very familiar with it. And by the way, there is an organization called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. Are you familiar with that?
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Are you a member?
I'm a member of Vistage.
Okay.
So similar to EO, but
you know what us EOers call Vistage people?
Tell me.
Traders.
I've been in Vistage for 8 years, Nick. I've met the EO people. I've considered joining EO a couple times, but I've stuck with Vistage.
Listen, you are using the EO product, for God's sake. You should join EO.
It's the best of both worlds, Nick. Best of both worlds.
Well, by the way, for any entrepreneur, I highly recommend one of these organizations. Vistage is great. EO is great. I'm just kidding, of course. So anything that helps personal and professional growth. So And we have methodology. So okay, so you have connection, which means your communication, you want to see the person, and open book, you align everybody. One question though, in that open book, or I should say transparency,
Yeah.
how do you make sure the individuals, your team members' personal goals align with the company's goals?
How do we make sure that the individual's personal goals align with the company goals? That's a good question, Nick. Where I go, my brain immediately goes towards is our key values. Okay, so we hire to our values, and what happens, I believe, naturally, and maybe this is a blind spot, I'd have to think about this further because it's a really good question, is what happens is our people are fully aligned with our values, and we live them and we eat them and we breathe them every single day. And so by naturally, what is happening is there's innate alignment with how we operate the business, because we operate it towards our values. And we're very, again, transparent with who we are as a business. Like we're trying to grow a company and grow it quickly. And that creates its own set of challenges along the way. And we're very open about that. In the first 2 weeks of employment, we share what our goals are, what our 3-year financial projections are. And there's a lot of growth there. And so we talk about the growth story. And then the foundation of our alignment on values, I think innately aligns our people with kind of our objectives as a company, and then their personal objectives. It just works naturally. Now we talk, we review monthly and quarterly kind of per EOS, right? We do the people analyzer and look to our people and see if they're aligning with our values. We look at monthly accomplishments, we document them, and we talk about goals. But in general, I think we hire the right people, and there's innate alignment that happens. So that's my immediate reaction to your question, Nick.
Yeah. So this is one of the things that in EO is a big deal, and you said the magic word. It happens during hiring. Now, share with us some of your values. First of all, how many values do you have, and how many values do you think an organization should have?
We have 6 values. And I don't know what the magic number is. Honestly, the Amazon's got their principles. I think there's like 12 of them, which seems like a lot to me.
Yeah.
And don't quote me on that. It's something like 12. We have 6. So for me, it's not about how many you have, or it's just really about whether they're real or not. Like, is it wallpaper?
How you practice it, right?
So we have an acronym. Ours is OPRAH with 2 P's, OPPRAH. It's own everything. Positivity is a choice. Passion for growth. Root the problem. Always delight. And honest, effective communication. Those are our values. And so we talk about them every single week. Okay.
So opportunity, and then
own everything.
Own everything.
Own everything. Positivity is a choice.
Positivity.
Passion for, I think I misspoke because we just changed this one. Passion for innovation.
Passion for innovation.
Root the problem, always delight, and honest, effective communication. Those are our values.
And you obviously, those are things that you came up with, right?
They've developed over the years, and they've changed over the years. So it's been input from me and our leadership team and our entire staff. So they've evolved. We changed 2 of them this calendar year and adjusted those. So
would you recommend in an organization the leader lays down, or leader inspires people to develop the organization's values collectively?
I think it depends on the organization, it depends on the structure, and ultimately it's a combination. I think the leader at times has to because the leader's job in a lot of cases is to create the vision for the business, right? And in order to do that, you've got to understand where the company is going, and maybe lay down some values that align with that. Whereas some members may have a less clarity around the vision of the business. So I think it's a joint effort. You've got to get feedback from your people, because sometimes the leader also isn't on the front lines and needs to know what's happening. So I think it's a combined effort, honestly, and it evolves over time. And if you're building the right teams and you're bringing on the right people, then naturally it creates opportunities for change and for clarity around who the company wants to be.
Yeah. And you talked about hiring, which is where it all happens. So tell us about some of your hiring practices. How do you go about it? And how do you know it's the right person?
So we're fans of, there's a book called The Who Book, which we're fans of. It's the Who hiring process. I can't remember the authors off the top of my head, but we've got a very structured hiring process. And it's 5 parts. And I'll just kind of talk through it at a high level. The first interview is a screen. It's a 30-minute phone call video where we're just asking very basic questions. Who are you? What do you want? What are your goals? And one of the key elements around the process is at every phase, we are asking our prospects to self-evaluate themselves. Okay. And tell us who their previous bosses were. We want to know their names, and we want to know how they believe their previous boss will rate them on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 or whatever. And the idea around how we run this process is we close the feedback loop, right? So you tell us how you think your previous bosses will rate you and why. Tell us why. And we ask the same question in a different way in the second interview, and we touch on it in the third interview. And then we follow up on that. At the very end, we check the references. We call the people they told us were their previous bosses, and we ask their previous bosses the same exact question, and we see how their answers line up with what the prospect said. So we're checking for alignment, right? We're checking for awareness, right? Awareness on the part of the candidate of themselves. So I kind of jumped ahead a bit. So we do a screen. We do then a second interview, which is called a top grading interview, where we're basically having the candidate tell us everything they did at their previous job.
How long is that top grading interview?
Hour,
the sit interview, right?
Hour and a half, right? So we go job by job. Tell us what you did. Tell us your biggest wins, your biggest losses, your areas for, right? Tell us what you did, right? So we're getting a sense of their technical abilities in a lot of cases, but the underlying thing we're always listening for are culture cues, right? Culture cues. Hey, my boss, so I had an issue with this, and what, so we're always just listening. And then the third interview we call the focused interviews, where we're creating very specific questions for that candidate around topics we want to learn more about. If we heard something that they said in the first interview, we want to go deeper, we'll create questions around that particular point, right? Could be a culture issue, could be a technical question, it could be an experience issue. And then what we do is we, after that, if they make it past that focused interview, we put them in front of our team, right? So we'll have a cohort of folks on the staff that represent different departments that will meet that individual for 30 minutes or an hour just to meet them. And that is a check, right? And what we say is, if I interviewed the individual with my head of service, I'm not going to be in that session. Neither is my head of service. You're going to meet a completely different cohort of people on my staff, and you guys are just going to talk. It's very unstructured. They're going to ask you questions. You're going to ask them questions. You're going to figure out if what I said or the things that I said are being also said by my staff, right? Is there a discrepancy around what I'm saying or how we are as a company and what my staff is saying? And they're going to do the same to you. So it's a check. It's a culture check, right? Is there alignment here? And then the last part is the reference check. So it's very structured. I've heard from candidates that it's long and it takes time, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with
So
that.
tell me, between these, like phone call, first interview, second interview, and the third one, and the reference check. Reference check is outside, of course. But do you have a best practice? How much space is best to put between interviews? Is it good to rush it? If the candidate is available, you are available, or do you purposely delay, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, my take, Nick, is especially today, the hiring environment in the Amazon ecosystem is really hot. It's hot now. Maybe it might have cooled down here in the last month or so, but costs are going up, and there seems to be lower supply. The demand is exceeding the supply. So if I find somebody that I like to move fast. Like, I don't want to waste any time. And I tell them that it's like, we're going to move quickly. Right. So the last individual I hired, is head of our partnerships. We've got a partnerships division that we're looking for partners, right? Adjacent companies that help us and our clients. We went through the entire process in 5 days, right? We stacked the interviews day after day after day after day. We were available. She was available. I told her, we're ready. We're aggressively trying to fill this position. We like you. And so we're going to move fast. And she was on board with it. So that's abnormal. That's abnormally fast. But I would say we try to get through the entire process in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And let's say that you completed the hiring and you decided, okay, I'm hiring this person. What happens after the hiring? Do you have an onboarding program or a process you follow?
Yeah, we have an onboarding program. So whoever's the hiring manager builds a training schedule. Training's usually about a month long. There's structured trainings throughout that. We send care packages prior to the individual starting. So we're remote. So we provide equipment, we provide shirts and, channel key swag and these sorts of things. So it's a very structured process. It's structured. There's probably some room for improvement in that right now. But it is structured. We've got an SOP around it that we've developed.
And are they working during the onboarding program, or are they just being trained?
A little bit of both. They're a little bit of both, right? And it depends on the role. It depends on the experience. If we're hiring an Amazon marketer that's senior, that's done it before, we might speed them up and train them and plug them in sooner. If it's somebody with less experience, we'll bring them along a little bit slower.
So I did some culture work where I hired a consulting firm, and they had 2-3 different guys, each one specializing in different things. And the main guy who basically drove the program, he said something to me that stuck with me. He said, companies who invest in onboarding their employees, their new hires, see their employee retention rate go through the roof. The increases are like several 100%. So they don't leave the company, and that's one thing. And the other thing is, he said, those companies who take onboarding seriously make onboarding the only thing that the employee has to do for a period of time. Doesn't mean that it has to be 1 week, 1 month. That's not what it means. It's the perception. It's the perception. And so what I did was, I would say to people, when you are hired, your first 3 days is onboarding. You come to work every day, but you're not doing any work. You are being trained. And then I broke it down. Day 1, train on how we make money. What is our business model? Who are key players? Just learn that. And then go hang out with the guys, do whatever. And then once you've taken enough of the material, go home. And second day, systems, strictly systems. And learn the systems, the clicks and the how-tos, whatever. And then talk to everybody, hang out, then go home. Third day, it all comes together. And then we quiz. And then fill in the blanks. And day 4, they start work. That's what I had put in place.
That's quick, Nick. I'm thinking onboarding is like a month for us, right? Onboarding a new staffer takes a month in my head, but it's It's probably more like 2 to 3 weeks.
Well, what I did was I would call it training. So
Yeah.
in your first whatever period, and I didn't make a rule because everybody was different. Because somebody who's senior, he doesn't want to he doesn't want to be told that he's going to be in training. But somebody who is junior, he doesn't mind. So that's why I didn't make rules. So I would say you are in training. You'll be in training in the first whatever. But your first 3 days are your onboarding. You're going to be onboarded for who we are and how we do business and what we use in the process. It was just to create the perception. And so that's what it did. I mean, different strokes for different folks, but it's just perception-wise, that's something that I did.
One of the things we started doing, Nick, sorry if you want to move on to a different topic, just really quick, is we've implemented during onboarding for our new staff, like within the first 30 days, is our head of HR sets a time to meet with every single new employee within the first 30 days for feedback. Like, how was your onboarding experience? Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. And it's amazing. Like, it's amazing the data points that we're getting to help us improve our process. Like, we're very much about asking for feedback to our clients, to our staff along the way, but we weren't doing it in onboarding for whatever reason. It was just a blind spot. And we started doing it recently, and it's like, wow, like there's so much good information here that is helpful for us that we can use for the next individual. So
fresh perspective, right? It's very valuable, fresh perspective.
Very valuable. Yeah.
So great. So obviously this, especially for companies who are in technology space, remote is a no-brainer, but even other companies, they are using this. And of course, what lacks in a remote space is that connection. So you put premium on building culture and maintaining that culture, and let the culture take hold of everything else, right?
Yeah, for me, everything always boils back to culture. Always. It was Peter Drucker said, a culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I believe that in my heart. Like, I believe that is the truth. And if you can build a good team that is aligned culturally, you can do anything.
Exactly.
You can do anything.
There is a gentleman by the name of John Daly. I don't know if you know John. He's very colorful character, put it that way. But anyway, he's a very senior guy. He's basically a sales guy, right? But he builds teams, a visionary, builds teams, and he does training and things like that. He gave some numbers again. He said companies that focus on culture, they have like X% more profitability, X% more top line, X% more employee retention, X% more in stock value if it's a public company. So I mean, there's no question culture increases value in every possible way.
Yeah. And you know what? It's just it's a better environment. It's more fun.
Yeah, it's more fun. I was going to say.
Yeah, like we're spend all day together. We might as well have fun while we're doing it,
Yeah.
So
you combine culture with gamification of the operation. That's a winning combination.
Yeah, that's certainly. Yeah, that's Amazon's taking that gamification thing to the next level for sure. So yeah, there's elements to that.
Yeah. So now that you mentioned the keyword Amazon, let's talk about Amazon. So you work with Amazon sellers. So tell us what kind of companies are the kind of companies you deal with.
Yeah, so we work with brands and manufacturers. So the value prop for Channel Key is usually doesn't land with resellers, right? Or folks doing retail arbitrage. It's brand owners and manufacturers. So for us, we're a full service agency. Okay, so typically what happens is our clients hand us the keys to their business. And we've got pods or teams that will work on these businesses. And usually 8 to 9 individuals will touch a client account in a given month that have a specific job or a function. So we're doing graphic design, we're doing copywriting, we're doing account management, we're doing analytics, forecasting, full funnel advertising. So we're an Amazon verified partner. We've got our own DSP entity. So we're doing full funnel advertising from product ads up to DSP in display. It could be somebody on our ops team working tickets behind the scenes. It could be somebody pulling reporting. So we're a full service agency. We also do full funnel advertising management as well. And our typical client profile, and this has changed, right? It's changed over the years. We've been doing this as officially as an agency since January of 2017. But we spun out of Trend Nation, as you said earlier. So we were tinkering with this model in 2015, 2016. Today, our typical client profile is a brand owner manufacturer. We're generally category agnostic, okay? That is doing between 1 and 50 million a year on Amazon. So middle market, 1 to 50 million per year, brand owner manufacturer. That's kind of our sweet spot right now.
Mm-hmm. So as far as someone who is looking to get into this,
okay,
how do they get to that 1 million level? What are some recommendations you would have?
So you're saying somebody that wants to create a product business,
yeah,
on Amazon to get to 1 million. So let's see. My response to it comes from my experience. Okay, so I've co-founded a product business that started as private label, then started doing retail arbitrage, then started doing exclusive distribution, then went back to private label. Okay, so like that's what happened, and that's my experience. So, if you want to build a proper, in my opinion, product business on Amazon, you should own the brand. Okay, so own the IP first and foremost. Build a brand, get a trademark, own the intellectual property, as it relates to the brand perspective. Okay, and if I was going to build a product business today, I would have to have a very clear understanding of what my competitive advantage is. Okay. Like I would never suggest go to Alibaba, go find a product that find a Me Too product everybody's selling, where you're just going to compete as a commodity. Like that's a really tough game to play in right now. Now, maybe it's 5 or 6 years ago, like you could do that sort of thing, but that market is saturated. There's so much content on YouTube right now around how to source products and build an Amazon business. And you can buy you can buy courses, you can do all these things. But at the end of the day, you've got to have a good product that people want, and you've got to identify some sort of competitive advantage that you have. Okay. And it could be your ability to source, it could be your relationships with the factory, it could be you've got a patent on this little widget, that is unique to you. You've got to be able to clearly define what your competitive advantage is, right? It could be a first mover, it could be a new product type, it could be something. But if you want to go on Amazon and source some Me Too product and slap a brown box around it and a sticker and not have a trademark brand, it's a good luck. Like that's a hard business. It's super competitive. The costs are high. The ad costs are high. There's a lot of people trying to do that. So you got to do it the hard way. Like in my opinion, you got to do it the hard way. Source good quality products, find the white space in the market, clearly understand what you're good at and why you think you're better than others. And then we haven't talked about managing the business yet, right? But that's why
that's coming. So let's say that they have an idea, they developed a vision around the product, they defined their competitive advantage, and they decided to go on Amazon.
Yeah.
So the decision-making process to sell on Amazon versus done through the website or Walmart, or forget online, just go try to cut a wholesale deal with stores. So tell me about that decision-making process for a business, and what do you recommend and why?
The one of the things that I like about Amazon, and I always have, is it creates an environment for entrepreneurs to be successful. Okay. So if you think about it, it's a platform, it's an entire ecosystem. And my business channel key is supporting this ecosystem, right? And a product business can do the same. And so I'm biased clearly. Okay. But on Amazon, the thing I like about it is the barriers to entry are super low. Okay. Like you can go set up a professional seller account today. I think it costs you 30, 40 bucks a year. And there you go. Boom. Voila. You can be a professional seller on Amazon. Furthermore, the traffic is already there. You don't have to buy the traffic, right? You can win by garnering a share of the traffic that is already endemic to the platform.
By the way, look, with the intention to purchase a product, not just any web traffic, right?
It's at the very bottom of the funnel, right? And so my experience in the past was we tried to spin up websites, right? But the problem with that is you've got to be a really good marketer, right? You've got to know how to educate your consumer base on who you are, on your brand, on why your product is great. You've got to buy that traffic. And I think it's unless you know how to do that, and a lot of people are really good at that, finding influencers, driving social traffic, doing all of these things. It's hard. You've got to buy the business, right? You got to buy the traffic. On Amazon, the traffic is already there. And you also have to buy the business on Amazon. But in my experience, it's a little bit easier, and the barriers to entry are a little bit lower.
The captive audience, right?
That's right. So I would start on Amazon, right? If I had to stack rank it, I'd say Amazon 1, Shopify or .com 2. Wholesale is far away from that, because that's a tough slog unless you know somebody, or you've got some whiz bang unique thing that's everybody wants. That's a tough road.
I agree entirely. I also tell people, look, first of all, if you're building a business, you're building it to scale. And in order to scale a business, you really have to have the knowledge, the discipline, and the infrastructure to scale it. And Amazon will force you to do it right. Otherwise, you'll be out anyway. So
that's right.
So and by the way, while building your infrastructure, you're also generating revenue. Maybe not necessarily profits yet. Doesn't matter.
That's right.
That comes if you do it the right way. So I say, well, where else can you discover if your product is good? B, build an infrastructure. C, make money in the process. Good luck doing that. And by the way, and get paid every other week. So where is that happening? Nowhere, right?
It's teed up, right? To your point, it's teed up. The barriers to entry are low. Yeah, and I think that's one thing that people don't necessarily discuss is like Amazon's fulfillment network, and that infrastructure is so powerful. Like, where else can you list a product, have built-in traffic, have a built-in 3PL where you can ship your product in bulk and have it delivered to your customer in 2 days with free returns? It's unheard of. Try doing that on your own. So yeah, I think if you want to scale fast and build something fast, it's the place to be. It still is.
So we're going to move slowly into operating. So of course, once you are doing this, selling your product, it really becomes very quickly all about information, right? Because you send it to Amazon, without a doubt, FBA is the model you would recommend. Would you agree? Instead of FBA?
If it's profitable for you, always yes, right? Sometimes, so we've got clients in soft lines, right, that are selling shoes, right? And if they've got 5,000 SKUs, you can't ship all 5,000 into FBA. It just doesn't make sense. You've got capacity limits. Doesn't make sense. You've got to do a hybrid fulfillment model where, your fast moving items are in FBA, and everything else, your longer tail, has got to be fulfilled by merchant. But yes, if you can put it in FBA and it makes sense, it's not too big or bulky or heavy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So get the prime match.
So that means Amazon will handle the product. Amazon will handle order fulfillment. And you just need to be now looking at the numbers. So what are some important numbers to watch? What are the, as they call, analytics to stay on top of?
And so for me, it boils down to the unit economics, of the transaction. So And Amazon doesn't always make it easy to understand your profitability. Okay. Like that's where there's all these accountants or CPAs that focus on e-commerce or Amazon because it's still not easy. So unit economics, what are your fulfillment costs? What are your storage costs? What are the referral fees or the Amazon toll? And then the big variable cost is your ad cost, right? And so the first thing I would want to get very clear on is what are my unit economics? What are my fixed costs? What are my variable costs? And then, I mean, there's so much stuff. I mean, there's conversion rates, there's impressions, there's all these things. Like there's so much data. But for me as a business owner, I'm looking at the unit economics. And then the biggest thing is cash flow and understanding that if I sell this product, A, I've got to wait 2 weeks to get the funds. And B, if I want to keep selling more products, I've got to deploy all of that capital into buying inventory. And I think for newer sellers that are building a business and starting from that perspective, managing cash flow is the most important thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're so right. So the way I break it down when I work with my clients is, first of all, you've got to have your financials in order. And that doesn't happen by having a CPA do it at the end of the year. You have to be real time. Your settlement reports have to be integrated. Your inventory has to be tracked real time on your balance sheet.
Yeah.
Because and that ties back to the bucket. So basically, I have 3 numbers that I watch. What is your margin on the cost of goods sold? So in other words, for every $100 you generate, how much are you paying for the merchandise part? So what is that percentage? So that cannot go beyond something. And then you have your fulfillment cost. What is the percentage again? Out of $100 you generate, what percentage, how many dollars going to shipping? And then you mentioned selling expenses. Selling expenses break down as your referral fees. And then you have your advertising. So what are those? So selling expenses, Amazon fees are 15%. What is your advertising? Out of $100, how much? So by the time you do this, you got a percentage left. That's tiny little small piece. So now comes the real poison. The poison is you've got, let's say, 20%. Which is a good enough margin, net after everything. And based on your top line, that may give you so much liquidity. How much inventory are you carrying at a time? So if you are not generating enough just to finance the inventory, then, you're dead. That's the cash flow poison, right? That's it. You're dead.
That's right.
So you're underwater. So that is when people always find themselves, wait a minute, sales are growing, we're making money, but we never have any money because your model is broken, right?
That's right. Yeah.
You're not tracking. You don't have the systems, you don't have the processes.
Yeah.
You're not so those things are key. That's the part you're referring to. The other part is all about the listings. How are the listings converting? What is your order flow rate?
Yeah.
Your order velocity, is it going up, down? Your average order value, your buyback retentions, all those things.
Reviews, quantity reviews, quality of reviews,
seller feedback rates.
Yeah.
So they have to. So how do you? Accounting part. Do you handle the accounting part, or do you expect the customer to do that?
Our clients typically do it. We produce P&Ls for them and can send them information extracted out of their accounts, but we're not CPAs.
We're not. Exactly.
We're not.
So how about on the listing related analytics? Do you, what is your take on it? And what are some favorite analytics that you like to look at, and how do you track it?
Yeah, we are, one of our core principles is around creating retail ready businesses for our clients. Okay. So optimized titles, bullets, descriptions, A+, brand store, full image carousel, videos, infographics, quantity of reviews, quality of reviews, and Prime, right? Like that, that's a core tenet of our business. And so what do we like, or what do we care about? It depends on the client and the business type that they're in, but certainly we care about, organic search placement. Okay. We care about conversion rates. if it's a CPG or consumable, we care about new to brand metrics, right? Because we're creating an LTV equation around generating new customers that are in the consumable that hopefully are signing up for Subscribe and Save. Okay. So every client's KPIs are slightly different. If we're dealing with a client that's doing 30 million a year, they might really care about organic search placement, and they might have a cohort of new products that they want to get that they're launching, right? And so they're in the launch phase, the launch cycle. So we're looking at turns, we're looking at impressions, we're looking at conversion rates, we're looking at reviews. But in general,
some of that data is not available through automation. So, like for example, conversion rates at listing level, at child SKU level. So, how do you get it? How do you use it?
So that's a good question, right? So we've got a lot of software that we use. Okay, that fuels and powers our business. We've built our own software that we use that fuels our business and creates visibility, scale, and efficiency for our teams. So we can extrapolate or make those calculations on our own, or pull a lot of calculations from different service providers that are out there that are doing it.
Okay, cool. So let's move on to the real core of it in terms of the operation, managing a team. So what are the roles in a team that makes an Amazon operation success?
So again, this is looking at the point of view of the Amazon brand, maybe an earlier stage brand, right? That's trying to build a business or get to $1 million,
or
right?
Even someone like that falls within your criteria, doing about 1 million or so, maybe certainly 10 million yet.
Yeah. So let's see. When we're working with a client, if I aggregated all the work that's being done on that particular business, right? Like, so you need operations, right? Ability. Like, you need somebody that can pick the merchandise, that can label it for FBA, that can send it into Amazon, and maybe that can deal with problems that come with that along the way. Okay. So somebody that can fill product. We need, we're managing ad spend. Okay. So we need we're managing the spend, right? And we're using humans, and we're using software to manage that. And so from our clients, we need somebody that can give us budget approval. Like, what is the strategy? What is the budget, right? So if that was internal, you'd have an individual that is spending the money, developing the strategy, and somebody that on the financial side that can approve the budgets, right? To where it makes sense and the profitability can be maintained.
Would you recommend somebody new to learn it and then handle his own PPC?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur, to a point, because you need to understand the basics, take the courses, get the accreditations, like you can do all of that. I would recommend a new entrepreneur that's trying to build a product business to do everything, right? Do everything. Now, at a point, you become the bottleneck and you're going to block the business from achieving its results. But yeah, you need to have a basic understanding of what's happening, because you can outsource it. You can find a person or a company or whoever to outsource it. But if you don't know the basics, right, or the core fundamentals, it's going to be hard for you to understand what's happening inside the business and whether or not the service provider or the software is doing a good job or a bad job. Yeah. So for a period of time, I would suggest the founder, most likely, or the founders of the business, need to do every key function.
So somebody for the paid campaign management, and then another role?
Assets. Okay. We talked about listings. We talked about retail readiness. Who's doing your product photography, right? Who's doing the keyword research to build your titles, to build your bullets, to build your descriptions? Who's producing the A+ content? Okay. Who's building out your brand store? These sorts of things. So producing product videos, producing infographics. So you need somebody that can create digital assets. Okay. Now that's one thing that you should probably outsource. If you don't know how to do that yourself, that's one thing that you can outsource, and you should probably outsource. Okay.
And how about the analytics?
If I'm a founder, I'm digging very deeply into the analytics, right? Into the data, understanding the metrics, understanding what's driving the business, what are the key KPIs that I should be queuing in on to understand the health of my business, and how does that translate into my profitability, into my unit economics, to my cash flow. Like, so you need to have you need to build a model, right? You need to build a model that's pulling in the key data points that are driving your revenue and your growth and your profitability and ultimately your cash flow.
Yeah. So, I mean, you laid it out. So, so what you are saying in the end is be prepared to do everything, even though it may not be the area you like. You're going to have to learn it. And then very quickly decide it's time to outsource because you should put your time into something better that will bring higher value to the business.
Yeah, I think that's a very typical entrepreneur's journey, right? That's been my journey. Is you start the business and it's a one person or two people or three, right? And you build, and at some point you get to a point where you need more help, right? Like in my experiences, I become the bottleneck or somebody else becomes the bottleneck. Okay. And they're the bottleneck because they don't know, like they don't have the capacity to do that particular job, which is okay. Or the individual just needs to be focusing on a different objective for the business.
And there are two ways to go about it, just that I can think of. So when that time comes that you are hiring somebody, do you hire somebody who comes with the knowledge to basically take responsibility and then let them run with it, knowing what the requirements are, what the outcome that they are looking for? Or do you go with people who will strictly adhere to what you put in place because you figured it out, you put in place, that that's going to work, and you just want them to execute that? You don't want. So which one do you go with?
So my answer is, Nick, is it depends. Okay. It depends on where you're at and what you need at that particular moment in time. Now, ultimately, my view on leadership and my job as a leader is to build other leaders and empower my people to make decisions. And so I don't want them to always toe the line. I want them to develop the business. And so at the end of the day, ultimately, I want them to be able to advance the business and change our processes, break the company and fix it and change our processes. But at that particular moment in time where you need somebody, right? It depends. What's your budget, right? What's your experience? Like if I knew if I'm hiring a PPC person and I knew how to do PPC, like I was good at it, but I just realized that I can't do it anymore because I don't have enough time to do it. Maybe I would bring in somebody that has less experience because I'm confident I can teach that person and I'm confident that I can backstop them. Okay. Now, if it's something that I'm less familiar with, or I've got less time to deal with, and I need a larger resource, I bring in somebody that has more experience.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it just depends. And it depends on where you're at in the scale of your business because it changes over time.
Yeah. Also, the seniority of the person is important. Some people are coming in to learn. They just become overwhelmed. So you have to provide the support and the infrastructure.
Yeah. What do I need? What's my budget? Do I need a leader? Do I need a manager, a people manager? Do I need somebody that I can coach and train? It's never a one size fits all. It just depends on where you're at in the business.
Exactly. So tell me something about Amazon policies that if you could ask Amazon to change in their policies for third-party sellers, what do you think that would be?
So the bane of our existence, Nick, and it has been since we started, is something we call data validation. Okay. So we're managing a brand's business. And they've had this, their products have been sold on Amazon for years and years and years. And we can never get their content to stay and stick. Okay. Titles revert, images revert back. There was some reseller contribution, in the past, and it was reverting back. Even though the seller is brand registered, even though they own the intellectual property, the IP, even though they hopefully have the highest seller score in the matrix. Okay, so this concept of data validation is the bane of our existence, and it's painful for us and our clients. The one policy, though, specific to that issue is around clients of ours that have in the past had a retail contribution, meaning the product was sold by Amazon, right? Via Vendor Central, not Seller Central. So we've had a lot of clients like this where they had a Vendor Central business in the past. Now they have a Seller Central business. And because at one moment in time, either they or somebody else, it could have been one of the distributors, sold the product to Amazon 1P, it's really hard to overcome retail contributions as it relates to content. It is a painful process.
As a seller, I used to exploit it.
I'm sure you did.
Everybody.
Yeah.
So if you are a good seller, because I was an Amazon seller and I was a reseller, I didn't feel this is going way back. I started in 2004 as a seller, and
that's a long time ago.
So, but I did it for 10 years, and we were doing thousands of dollars per day, and all through automation. And of course, we were very powerful, and we would manipulate the titles. And then we would, in fact, we would replace the title for, let's say, 3.4 ounce with 1.7. And then knowing that it's actually going to say 1.7, but everybody would price it high because it's actually a 3.4 ounce listing. So, we would gain the buy box. And before you know it, we made so many sales and nobody would compete. So, of course, customer experience becomes different. But we were meeting it all. I mean, we were not doing anything wrong. We were just simply exercising the power Amazon gave, what they call merchant of authority, right? So
and making my life difficult along the way, Nick. I appreciate that.
That was 10 years ago. I don't. Plus, being a reseller, you said it yourself at the beginning, is no longer a good model. So this is great. So you want Amazon to do something about this content validation.
If I had to simplify it, Nick, if I am the brand owner and I have brand registry, give me the authority to own the content that's published on the PDPs and dictate it. That's it, simply.
Well, Amazon is littered with so many duplicate listings. So it's your job as the brand owner to find them, get them consolidated. Catalog cleanup. That's the job.
It's hard.
So I work on it all the time myself. I know it's very hard. There is no science behind it. It's someone really detail oriented, good Excel skills, keep working on it. And then constant tickets with Amazon. I hear you.
That's a good business. If somebody can develop a software that can spot the issues and the discrepancies in content, and then actually automate the ticketing process and getting those issues solved, like that's a good business if somebody can build it.
We should talk. Anyway, so this was great. So tell us a little bit about who Dan Brownsher is. Where do you live, and what are some of your passions? I mentioned scuba, obviously. I want to know about it. And tell me a little bit.
Yeah, I live in Las Vegas. I've got a wife. I got 4-year-old twins, as you mentioned. I'm passionate about scuba diving. I love golfing. I've gotten into Formula One racing in the last few years, thanks to Netflix. And I don't know. I love building teams. I love building things and seeing them become something.
So where does that come from? Why do you like building teams so much?
I don't know, Nick. I don't know.
So what happened when you were a kid? Were you always alone and you were always looking to be part of it?
No, I wasn't. I was an athlete growing up. I'm very competitive. So I like to win, but I like to win in the right way. And maybe I'm being idealistic, or that's my ego talking, but I want to do it the right way. And so I get gratification by seeing the results of the work that we're doing and the growth from our people and our staff and our teams and our clients. Like that's what gives me energy. And so I don't know, it's winning, right? But it's winning the right way and propping other people up along the way. Like that's what gets me excited.
So what I'm hearing is, I think it's not building teams, What I'm hearing is, when I hear you say, I like winning, winning feels much better when you are surrounded with people and share it.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I've never thought about that, Nick.
So if you like winning, you win today. I mean, you imagine, so you live all by yourself, you don't have anybody around you, and you win the lottery. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna go home and watch TV. I mean, there's nothing.
It's no fun.
In it. But if you got a team around you, that feeling of winning is a lot richer, right? So I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is in my opinion.
That's a very deep and astute observation, Nick. And I've done a lot of work at Vistage. I just remembered a speaker that came, and she basically placed a color next to you and your personality type based on, I don't know, some questions or whatever. And for me, it was about this idea of like harmony and community and being involved in an environment like that. So maybe you're right? So I'm taking my competitive nature and layering this idea of community around it and people and fun as the mechanism.
So I heard something that actually does work. So this person who does things selfishly, they asked, so, but don't you love anybody? Sure, of course, I love my significant other. And so, what, wouldn't you make a sacrifice? So of course. So love leads to sacrifice. And then this person said, yeah, but I love him selfishly because loving him makes me happy, and my being happy leads to my satisfaction. So if I have to make a sacrifice, no problem, anytime. So you are winning selfishly.
I think by nature, Nick, and now we're going like super deep, right? Everybody has an ego. Everybody is a narcissist to some level, right? And so, yeah, we're feeding ourselves and what we believe is going to make us happy.
I heard this. Every leader in a position of tremendous responsibility has to be a narcissist to a certain extent, because otherwise, how do you keep going? You really have to think yourself so highly so that you can keep going there against all odds. And ideally, you're not a narcissist, but you just have the determination and the persistence and the inner strength to keep going. So
the belief and the grit that the sun's coming up tomorrow, and it's not as bad as you think it is, but it's also not as good as you think it is, right? So it's just that belief. Yeah.
As Churchill said, if you think you're going through hell, just keep going.
You got a lot of good quotes, Nick.
So tell us how people can reach you. We're going to obviously put your information on our website, and the episode will go on YouTube, so it will all be there. But
perfect.
Give us your contact information.
Yeah, so you can find us on channelkey.com. So you can go to our website and find us and connect with us. But the best way for me is just follow me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Follow my, search my name, Dan Brownsher. We produce a lot of content. You can follow Channel Key as well. We produce a lot of content at the Channel Key level, a lot of thought leadership. So best way is to connect with me on LinkedIn, message me on LinkedIn, and follow our content.
Great. Thank you, Dan. This was great. You gave us a lot of insights and introduced us to building company culture and how important. And your clients are in good hands. Thank you very much.
Nick, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was a very thought-provoking and fun conversation for me. So thanks for having me.
Likewise. And that brings us to our end of another episode. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Be sure and subscribe, rate, and review our show. And be sure and share an episode with a friend. And thank you so much for being with us today. We'll see you next week here on Amazon Legends.